Hello, welcome to my shop. In this video we're going to start from a 9-inch piece of round rod and we're going to produce one of these, a painted and polished aluminum flashlight. I got started making flashlights by being in a store one day that sold Surefire flashlights, and I decided to buy one of these xenon incandescent drop-ins and try to build the rest of the flashlight. This is a Surefire P60, and it would go for about 1 hour on a set of batteries and put out 60 lumens. Those first flashlights were made out of 6061. I didn't have any CNC equipment at the time, so the pattern on them is a simple threading pattern from the lathe. The next set of flashlights used an LED, the Surefire P60L drop-ins, and they put out about 80 lumens and went 11 hours on a set of batteries. That next set of flashlights, I had a tag mill CNC, and I was able to do some two-dimensional patterns like this. Also, when I did those flashlights, I wrote up an article for Digital Machinist magazine, and that article got published in the summer of 2008. The next set of flashlights use this LED drop-in from Malkoff devices. It's solid brass on the outside, which is good for heat sinking. It's potted, puts out about 320 lumens, and will go to about 1.5 hours on a set of batteries. These third generation flashlights, I was getting better at CNC, and so I did quite a few different 3D patterns on them. I also decided to, instead of a flat bezel on the front, try to do what's called a strike bezel, which has some soft points, and I put a place for a lanyard. And the flashlight that we're going to machine in this video is a 4th generation flashlight. It's made out of 7075 aluminum, just because it machines a little nicer than 6061. I started also with 1.5-inch round rod instead of 1 3/8, so I had enough material to put this hex on the bezel, which is really nice so it doesn't roll away when you lay it down. Now, all of these flashlights use lithium batteries. These are CR123A primary cells, non-rechargeable. And if you use your flashlight a lot, it's very easy to buy rechargeable versions of these. Or you can buy cells like this, rechargeable lithium-ion cells. This is an 18650, which means it's 18 millimeters diameter, 65 millimeters long. And you can see that this cell is the same length as 2 of these. However, it is bigger in diameter. So they also sell versions of this called a 17650 or a 16650. So a 16650 is 16 millimeters in diameter, and they'll directly replace these. However, they're not the same voltage. So if you use an LED drop-in like this one will go from 3.4 volts to 9 volt input. And the current regulator that's in it will keep a constant current all the way down to 3.4 volts. So this, you need to pay attention when you're buying the drop-in to make sure it'll operate at the voltage that you want it to. Throughout the video, you're going to see these various construction aids used. They're used to hold the parts of the flashlight in the lathe chuck or on the milling machine or with the lathe tailstock. They're an excellent thing to practice your threading on before working on the real flashlight. Also, one precaution related to threading. When you're making these threads to be aluminum on aluminum, and when you eventually clean it up so that you don't have oil over everything, if you try to put the threads together, you're going to find out that the threads stick. And that's referred to as galling or cold welding. And if you try to put those threads together clean, you will quickly find out that you will never get them apart, and you will wreck the parts trying to do so. So what you need to do after you've cleaned parts is to always make sure that you have a little bit of grease on the threads. At the end of the video, you'll see that I brush on the thinnest possible coat of synthetic grease. That's all that's required to prevent galling. The other thing to talk about in relation to the drawings that I've included at the end of the video is those drawings went for the first 2 generations of flashlights. So these newer drop-ins I've been using, like this, may require a slightly different diameter, a little bigger diameter where the drop-in goes. And this has a square edge on it, so you may need to put a little bit of a groove in the end to accept that square edge. So be aware that you may actually want to determine which drop-in you're going to use before you make the flashlight to ensure that you can make the flashlight to accept it. Also, at the end of the video, we're going to do what my father would have referred to as an acidity test. That is, we're going to see if it works. And we're going to compare it against an old incandescent flashlight like this with a couple of D batteries, and we'll see how they compare. All right, it's time to try out some flashlights. We have 3 flashlights, the first being an older incandescent D-cell flashlight. And we have an aluminum flashlight with the 80 lumen Surefire P60L. And we have this newest 4th generation aluminum flashlight with a Malkoff Devices M61 320 lumen LED. So now we'll turn off the light and aim at the drill press. And there's the incandescent. Not very bright, and you'll notice the beam is not really very uniform. Got kind of halos and just not very uniform. Now we'll try the 80 lumen Surefire P60L. Much brighter. And you see a nice round beam, almost too bright. And finally, the 320 lumen Malkoff Devices M61. Extremely bright. Nice pattern.